With the Keyloop and enquiryMAX integration, we've had some frequently asked questions. And we want this video to overcome the challenges that you may have when you first start to use the integration. So we're going to load a customer. We're going to show how it appears in Keyloop. We're also going to show you how to update the users in enquiryMAX so the Keyloop user IDs are present, and show some areas around accessory lines and VAT codes as well. So hopefully this will give you a greater understanding of not just the premise of the integration, but actually the nuts and bolts of how it works. So first of all, we're going to go into Manage Users. In enquiryMAX, we're going to go into Tools and then Manage Users here. So if I just go into a sales exec, okay, so you can see the Keyloop user ID there. Now, if that is not populated, then what you're going to end up with is a lot of customer orders all being in the name of the admin user. Because once you send the order from enquiryMAX into Keyloop and the admin user starts to change or confirm that, it's going to connect to the last user that made any amendments. So it's absolutely critical that your Keyloop user IDs are in. The next area of the tool section is the dealer options. So with the dealer options, it's really important that as you set up your options, so we've got front mud flaps here, okay, and you can see I've put the VAT line in, I've put the price including tax. If you do put a cost excluding tax in, that will actually come across into Keyloop as well. But it's this area here that you need to, if you want the accessories to map correctly once the order has been pushed across to Keyloop, it's imperative that you take the Keyloop option codes and put them into here. Now I've left this one as lowercase to show you an example of what happens if you do it incorrectly and how it can be overcome. If we just look at the rear mud flaps one as well, you can see there, that's the Keyloop code for that option, okay? So we're going to go into the customers area, and we're just going to show you how we can review the Keyloop data in enquiryMAX. So I'm just going to put in here a customer called Mr. Fry. The postcode we're going to use is SK9. So SK9. So if I search that, that will pull through the customer record from Keyloop. So if I now click onto it, I can then actually start to load an inquiry on this customer, and you can see I don't have to ask him for his address and his contact details again, because it's just pulling it straight out of the Keyloop database. But with this, we're actually going to load a new customer so you can see how it appears in Keyloop as we go through that process. So back into Customers, New Customer. Okay, so we've loaded the inquiry, we've loaded the customer name and address, and the phone number. I'm just going to pop an email in as well. Okay, and then we just go through the data permissions. So in this test site that we have here, we have two data permissions. We've got the manufacturer and the groups one as well. So the manufacturer one obviously won't appear in the Keyloop system, but the group one will, so let's just go into the group one. So here we'll set them all to yes, and I'll just untick a couple just again, so you can see how it appears in Keyloop once we move across to the other screen. So save that. Okay, so do you want to show us how that appears in Keyloop now that's been saved?
Yes, I will, thank you. Okay, so we're going to show that customer Fry within the Keyloop database that's just been sent over. And here immediately you can see that record with its basic details. And I load that up within Keyloop. You can see that it already states that it's got data protection agreement on there. And if we continue and load that customer record up, you can see the details that have been passed across, the home phone number, the email address, the address details, postcode, etc. And we can also see the data protection. So at the dealer level, we can see the ones that have been denied and agreed, and those match those that have been generated by enquiryMAX. And indeed the VW equivalents as well. Okay, thank you. Back to you.
Okay, so now we're going to load the inquiry in enquiryMAX so we can start to create orders, etc. towards the conclusion of this sale. So you can see that I've gone for a used Audi A1. Okay, so I just pop in here which kind of spec it is, method of contact, source of inquiry, and then I'm going to save that and then go into my offers area. So used offer. So I'm now going to dive into the Keyloop stock and try and find this vehicle. So Audi, search. So we're looking for X507VWT. Now I just wanted to show you something before we move forward here. So let's say for instance I wanted to add this inquiry. So if I click here to add to inquiry, and what I'm going to get at the top is it's actually been reserved by a branch general manager. So this will come through and tell you if you try and sell a vehicle or add an offer on a vehicle that's already been reserved in Keyloop, then you will get this as a warning. Now it can only be overridden by someone with group manager access who can actually go in and unreserve that car, or you can set up an amount of days that a reservation occurs for. It's 0 to 3,500 days that Keyloop is set up for, and that's what we've mirrored in enquiryMAX. So we're not going to use that one, we're going to cancel that, and we're going to use one that hasn't yet been reserved, and we're going to show you how it becomes reserved in Keyloop in a moment. So there's the vehicle. I click select on there, it's pulled through the car, pulled through mileage-based price, etc. So as much information as Keyloop has, we will pull through to this screen for you. Then we're going to go into accessories and we're just going to add in the front and rear mud flaps. There's no part exchange on this one, so we're going to add in the gap insurance which is there, and also the paint and fabric. You can see the tax rules that I set up in dealer options earlier are there for all to see, and then into Deal Builder we can see the figures here. We'll put a road tax in there. I'm not sure how much it is, but we'll put £250 in there. And then we're going to save it. Go into the offer, send the offer and confirm it. And then once I accept the offer, we'll then look in Keyloop to see how the reservation has occurred. So accept the offer. I'm just going to choose that the customer is paying cash. You can see all the data that's come across from Keyloop here with stock number, etc. And then estimated handover date I'll put in as the 5th. So save that, and then we'll look in Keyloop to see how that reservation has happened.
Thanks. Okay, so now in fact within the Autoline system, we're going to open up that vehicle. And if we have a look at the sales brief, you can immediately see that down here we have the reservation details that have been passed. And this is just taking parameters and values that have been sent to us by enquiryMAX about who's reserved that vehicle, the vehicle that's been reserved, and timings and everything along those lines. So immediately that vehicle's reserved in Keyloop. And when we update enquiryMAX with available stock lists, that vehicle will no longer be showing as available.
Okay, so obviously we've reserved the car. Now let's say it's a few days later and we're ready to now push that order from enquiryMAX across into Keyloop. So the administrator can go in and then make sure that the accessory lines are all mapped and the VAT codes are correct, and then obviously get the invoice done. In the daily log of enquiryMAX, once you've got the Keyloop integration set up, you have a Keyloop orders box. So if we just go into there, I'm just going to change that to used because that's what we're looking at, and then it'll be the one at the bottom. So there's Mr. Fry. Okay, so I'm now going to click confirm and confirm order. So that is now sending that across to Keyloop. So we're going to move it back into Keyloop so you can see how the VAT lines work and the accessory lines have come through as well.
Great, so I've gone back into our vehicle stock books and the accept external sales orders. And you can see our Mr. Thomas Fry. The order has been pushed across from enquiryMAX. You can see here the values and the lines. So your paint protection, your front mud flaps, your rear mud flaps, and notice here these codes. These are the option codes that have been sent across from enquiryMAX that will be automatically trying to match against the lines in Keyloop. You can also see the VAT values and those lines that have VAT codes. Again, in enquiryMAX, have got the appropriate VAT amount. So I'm going to now try to accept that into vehicle stock books. This is where the system's actually asking me and saying, we don't recognise the option code flaps front, which code is it? Now here I have an uppercase flaps front, so I would be either double clicking on that line or clicking once and adding the option. If you wanted to deal with it at a later point, you could just say ignore the options and add that on manually. But we definitely recommend in this case you're just double clicking on this line. You will notice that all the lines have now been accepted and mapped. So I didn't have to do the mapping for all the other lines. It recognised the codes. Just where it didn't recognise the code for flaps front, I've had to map that one. So I'll now accept that, close this screen, come out and load that vehicle up again.
So obviously it's quite an easy fix that. You just go back into your enquiryMAX dealer options, make sure it is in the capitals that Keyloop has it, so the next time you push it across it does map correctly without the need to do that.
Okay, so I can look at the sales brief. I can see all of the customer details have been brought through. The reservation details are still maintained. The vehicle progress codes and everything on there is fine, have been moved on. I can look at the specifications and here I can see all of my lines that have been added. I've got my descriptions that have come across from enquiryMAX about what those items are. I've got my valid VAT values. I've got, if I drill into those, I can actually see the VAT code that's associated with that in the Keyloop system and the VAT amount. All of that is covered off. The only thing that is preventing me from being able to invoice that is that I haven't selected an invoice account. So I just need to set my invoice account that I'm going to be posting to. At this point, it's actually asking me whether or not I want to overwrite the address for the invoice account to be the address of the account code that I've selected. In the scenario where you're adding a finance company, you will want to set the address as being the finance company. In this case, the customer's paying by cash, so I'm going to leave the address as shown and leave it as the CRM record. And I'll do exactly the same for the customer account. I'll then be able to print my main invoice should I need to.
That concludes our process flow and hopefully gives a greater understanding of what needs to be done in the background of enquiryMAX to make sure that the data comes across correctly. But you can see that once it is set up correctly, that Keyloop obviously does bring that data through from enquiryMAX nice and clean and ready to be invoiced.